Namaste nerds, Navanad, Budget Pub Stomper. We're going to be talking about the Jolly Balloon Man today. This is probably the most excited I've been to do a video for the channel in a while. I absolutely adore this commander. And also, I missed last weekend's video. I was at a CDH tournament with some friends. I was at a CDH tournament. It was 180 players, I believe, or right about that. It was a 10K. I made top cut with a record of 4 wins, 1 loss, and 1 punt. No, that's 4 and 2. I busted out in the semifinals on a multi-4. With Malcolm Tana, the deck was absolutely amazing. I'm really happy with what I've come up with there. But even when people do play it, they don't play it the way I play it. And I think my build is really... it offers things that the other versions I've seen don't offer. The deck was amazing. It tried to hand me one more win. But in any case, you can talk to me about that and other things later on, which is going to bring me to the other thing I'm really excited to talk with everyone about. So my fellow budget brewer Ryan, a.k.a. RS Mustang on the Discords, this is the guy that did the Grist interview thing with me. He started a Discord for all things budget competitive, and you're all invited. It's brand new. It hasn't been officially open to the public until this exact moment, but your invitation is in a link in the description, or will be, or when you're listening to this or watching this, it is. I'm really hopeful about it. I think considering there's it hasn't been but like kind of a soft open so far, there's been a little bit of traffic. I think it's going to be a big step in the right direction for budget competitive commander in general. And I think hopefully part of the plan is that we could get some spell table games going for this channel, but just for everybody who wants to play budget CEDH but doesn't have people to play with. And then, I think it'd be really interesting and cool to allow everyone to see what the quasi form or what the sub format really looks like. So your invitation's in the description, and please come and check us out. There's already a little bit of traction. People are talking. It's going to give you an opportunity to chat with like-minded people, some people that have a lot of experience in CEDH, and especially in budget CEDH, and then some people that are brand new to the format too. So I think it'll be a fun thing for everybody. But let's get on with the Jolly Balloon Man. I think this is the coolest frickin' commander that Boros has had maybe ever. I think ever. This is my favorite commander in the Boros color identity. Unfortunately, that's not saying a whole lot. But the question was really, I saw the card. I'm like, this is fantastic. I love this. I love the flavor. I love the ability. I love it. I love it. But is it good enough? Is it good enough for CDH? And there's a lot of people that are kind of asking that question right now. And I don't think anyone's landed on the exact right build for it yet, but I think it might get there. It'll get there. It'll, I don't know that it's going to be like a tournament stomper, but it's definitely going to be a viable competitive deck. And where I think this thing really shines, honestly, where I think the Jolly Balloon Man deck will really shine is exactly here in $100 budget competitive commander. It's like this is the sub format that this creature was made for. The designers probably didn't know that, but I'm telling them this is the format that this guy was made for. And I want to give props to, I've had some help. This was actually the first deck that was built kind of on the Discord. Not entirely on the Discord, but it was, we brought it up on the Discord. It was brought to my attention as a thing people might be interested in. We started chatting about it on the Discord, and then a buddy of mine, another fellow budget brewer, who goes by Nacho on the Discord, also a friend of the channel, he's also been on the channel, the Dargo guy, right? Did an interview with him also. Him and I hashed this out for just maybe like 10, 15, 20 minutes on Discord. Then he ran with it, and he came back with a 100 card list. And then I spent like 2, 3, 4 hours hashing out the last like 8 card slots with him. We argued, we laughed, we cried. It was a time. No. But we've done a lot of deck brewing together. We fell into our old rhythm, and I think we came up with something really good. And then over the last couple of days, just here and there, we've been sort of figuring out some new tech and making some kind of last minute cuts. In fact, I was doing last minute cuts right up until about the time I hit the record button here. And And so this is one where I honestly want to show you the considering board. But so these are the things that I'd be looking to maybe slot back in if you find a card that isn't working for you in your meta, in your playstyle in general. But let's talk about the Balloon Man. What's he do? So he's a 3-mana haste, 1/4 creature. Tap 1 colorless, importantly, and tap this dude. You create a token that's a copy of another target creature that you control, except it's a 1/1 red balloon creature in addition to its other colors and types. It has flying and haste. You sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. You can only activate it as a sorcery. So what does this do? So that one thing it just did is when I read that activate only as a sorcery, is it made me very sad. Because one of the really cool cards that's in here is Drum Bellower. And I've been goldfishing it, and in play testing, Drum Bellower has been awesome in the deck, but you guys might see a live cut in real time because I was thinking we could use this guy on every opponent's turn, but we can only activate this ability as a sorcery. Maybe we just found space for Red Blast. So, okay, let's talk about, first of all, before I start cutting things, what does this commander want to do? What does the deck want to do? What are we trying to do with this commander deck? Glad you asked. So first of all, we're going to abuse ETBs, right? We're going to have things like Sticker Goblin, aka Mind Goblin, but we're going to be abusing creatures that have ETBs, like Aerial Extortionist, like Mind Goblin, and we've got some kind of just like we can make a copy of Fear of Missing Out, and when it ETBs, you get its ETB ability, or you can make a copy of Humble Defector. This is kind of sick. So you make a 1/1 balloon copy of Humble Defector. You tap the balloon copy of Humble Defector, you draw 2 cards, but you don't actually have to pass the Humble Defector off to somebody else because it's going to die at the end of your turn because it's a balloon. It's going to pop before they ever get their Humble Defector. Things like this, right? Where we want to use ETBs, creatures entering the battlefield, coming into play. Like we've got Welcoming Vampire, so that every time one of our balloons comes into play, we can draw a card. We've got Spirited Companion, so we can make a balloon out of him to draw a card. So we're turning our commander into a bit of a value engine. Imperial Recruiter turns into a value engine. We've got both the Recruiters now. This was a much needed reprint. But Recruit of the Guard, Imperial Recruiter, not only do they become little value engines, but they're also going to help us find our combo pieces. Pinnacle Monk can be a land, but if you have 5 mana, you can set up an engine with this because we're playing a ton of, a pretty good number of sorceries, but also just a ton of interaction. We're actually a very interactive deck. We're going to be going a little bit slower than the turbo decks in the $100 space, but we've got some of the best removal and budget competitive. We've got a Braid, Bovine Intervention. We've got Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshare. Ghostfire Slice is busted, guys. I've been playing this a lot. This has like never not been on in a single game that I've played. I've probably seen this in my hand 8 times, and it's always been a 1 mana, 4 damage lightning bolt. Every time, 100% of the time. And even at the fail case, it still only costs 3 mana. That's not the end of the world, right? It's not like a dead card. It's not a great card at that rate, but it's not a dead card. Most of the time, it's better Lightning Bolt. Speak of the Devil, we've got Lightning Bolt. Orum's Chant. Now, we spent a little bit of the budget on Grand Abolisher, Orum's Chant. Guys like this. The backside of Flame Scroll Celebrant is a silence effect, and there's a real reason for that. Our combo, our main combo lines are pretty much all going to look about the same. They're different, but kind of the same. And they're going to require us to have a number of pieces in play. We're going to have to keep our Balloon Man in play. We're going to have a Mana Dork in play, which is not as hard as you might think. So we'll need a Mana Dork in play, we're going to need Balloon Man in play, and we're going to need one of our key pieces, one of these kind of Kikki combo pieces like Combat Celebrant, or maybe the best one is Village Bellringer. There's tons of them. There's actually tons of them. Fear of Missing Out. After you've blinked this a couple of times, not blinked it, after you've ballooned this a couple of times, you'll hit Delirium easy. And we've got a really good mix of different spell types and tutors and things like Faithless Looting, Gamble. We're going to be putting a lot of stuff in the graveyard. And actually the guy, Fear of Missing Out, fuels itself. Once we get Delirium, this is our best guy. This is a 2-mana version of this effect that we need to win the game. Maybe we'll talk first about how the game actually ends. I mean, we've got Dualcaster Mage and Twin Flame because we're Boros. It's oldie but goodie. And honestly, because we tried to jam so many ETBs into the deck, the Twin Flame, oftentimes when you play Twin Flame in a CEDH deck, you're going to have Dockside Extortionist and some of those things that like clones and stuff that you can get the ETB off of, or you'll have like somebody will have an Atraxa in play and you can use one of these Twin Flame or one of the Twin Flame like cards. There's 3 of them, well, at least depending on how you look at it, 4, maybe 5. But they tend to be a little bit dead. If you're not familiar with Twin Flame, by the way, Twin Flame, this one in particular only allows you to copy creatures that you control, but you can copy more than one creature if you strive it, if you pay 3 extra mana for each additional. But mainly what you're going to be doing with this to win the game is you're going to have a creature in play, you're going to cast Twin Flame, targeting the creature to make a copy of it. You're going to hold priority, and then you're going to flash in Dualcaster Mage to copy the Twin Flame. So when the Dualcaster Mage comes in and makes a copy of the Twin Flame that you made it, so the copy of Twin Flame is going to copy the Dualcaster Mage, and the new Dualcaster Mage will copy the new Twin Flame, and so on and so forth until you will flood the board with infinite Dualcaster Mages and you'll swing for hasty lethal. But like I was saying, the Twin Flame actually isn't dead in this deck because we did prioritize creatures that have an ETB in this deck. So there's not as many great ones in white-red as you'd hope, but there's some good ones. There's some decent ones. We've got the Recruiters, we've got the Witch Enchanter, Spirited Companion draws a card, Skyclave Apparition. Get a couple copies of this guy and you've gone a pretty far. You haven't won the game, but you've done a pretty good job of taking control of the game a lot of times. Pinnacle Monk, like I said, this is one that has a good ETB, so if you balloon it, you get the ETB, or if you make a Twin Flame copy of it, you get the ETB again. You can make a Twin Flame copy of Humble Defector, draw 2 cards, and then the Twin Flame. So you get the idea. It's got uses aside from being a combo piece. It's not just a dead card. And the other really neat thing about the Dualcaster Mage Twin Flame combo in this deck specifically is Dualcaster Mage can also be a bit of an engine with the Jolly Balloon Man, right? So they have more utility in this deck than they do in most decks. But the main strategy of the game, or of the deck, what we mainly want to do is we want to get one of our mana dorks in play, like Iron Mirror. I think I am going to do the live cut here. I don't think this is going to work for the deck the way I thought it was going to. God dang, I really loved this synergy, but the problem is it doesn't work. Is it worth it? We untap all of our guys. We do have mana dorks, but we're just not untapping the Balloon Man. So I thought, like, if we had a Humble Defector and a Drum Bellower, a couple dorks, whatever, that we could every turn on each opponent's turn, we could draw 2 cards with that, but it's not gonna work that way. I'm gonna leave this in, and we're just gonna add this to considering in case there's something I'm missing. Unfortunately, I think there probably is not something I'm missing, and we'll move this other guy in here. I mean, really, we do have enough of these 2-mana artifact creatures, I think, without mannequins, so maybe... but this is the whole thing that the deck is trying to do. It's trying to get a mana dork in play with the commander and any of Coercive Recruiter. That takes a little bit of extra mana to set up. Combat Celebrant just goes infinite. So any of Hedron Crawler, any of these Mannequin, our mirrors, we've got Plug Mirror, Iron Mirror, whatever the red mirror is, or we've got all the mirrors, Gold Mirror. We've got a pretty good number of these creatures that are going to be able to tap to create 1 colorless mana, and thank God the Balloon Man only requires 1 colorless mana. So if we have a colorless mana creature in play, say we've got Mannequin and we've got one of these Kikki Jikki bottom type effects like Village Bell Ringer. Now note here, not all of the Kikki Jikki bottoms work with this combo, but all the ones that are in this deck do. So we've got, say, Village Bell Ringer, we've got our commander, and we've got Mannequin in play. So what we're going to do is, so we've got Village Bell Ringer in hand. We are going to tap the Jolly Balloon Man by tapping the Mannequin to make a copy of whatever creature. Maybe Mind Goblin, and maybe we make 4 red mana. Cool. Now we play our whatever, Coercive Recruiter, Combat Celebrant. In this case, we play our Village Bell Ringer, and that's going to untap this guy and our Mana Dork. And whatever other creatures we have, right? But mainly we just need Jolly, Mannequin, and a Bell Ringer effect. So when this guy comes in, it untaps both of these guys. So since it's untapped the Mannequin and it's untapped the Balloon Man, we can tap the Mannequin again to add 1 colorless mana to activate our Jolly Balloon Man, tap the Jolly Balloon Man, making a copy of Village Bell Ringer. The copy of Village Bell Ringer comes into play. It untaps our Mana Dork, it untaps our commander, and we do it again, and again, and again. And we're making infinite Village Bell Ringers. Fear of missing out, as long as we have Delirium, it'll do the same thing. Before we have Delirium, it's a nice little engine piece that we can copy with our commander. Now, this, I don't know how to pronounce this, Emor, Marshal of Rohan, this works in the deck also. It's a little bit more convoluted, but it's just about as effective. It does the thing. Just trust me when I say it does the thing. I don't think we're going to go through all of, probably the most complicated version of this is Coercive Recruiter, so maybe I should kind of clear that one up. So Coercive Recruiter says when Coercive Recruiter or another pirate, that's important, or another pirate enters the battlefield under your control, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. Until end of turn, it gains haste and becomes a pirate in addition to its other types. So this doesn't seem like it would work at first, but again, it's whenever any pirate comes into play, this thing triggers. So if you make a copy of it with your Balloon Man, and then you use the Coercive Recruiter to take control of Balloon Man and untap it, and then you tap Balloon Man again to make another copy of Coercive Recruiter, now you're going to get another trigger for both Coercive Recruiters. So the Coercive Recruiter that was already in play sees another pirate come into play. Your balloon is a pirate. It comes into play. That triggers the Coercive Recruiter and the new one. So so the new one coming into play triggers the old one and the new one. So that's going to now allow you to untap 2 creatures, and then you do it again and it allows you to untap 3 creatures. So it's effectively the same thing. You just kind of have to know how to work the you have to know how to explain it a little better is really all it comes down to, and it takes just a little tiny bit more mana to get going, but not much. It depends on the exact board setup, but oftentimes if you just have you don't even necessarily need 2 Mana Dorks. You just need like a Mana Dork and some leftover mana. Combat Celebrant is probably the second best version of this effect, assuming you don't have Delirium. If you have Delirium, Fear of Missing Out is 2 mana, do the thing. If you don't have Delirium, Village Bell Ringer and Combat Celebrant are going to do the thing. So again, we've got, say, Iron Mirror and we've got the Jolly Balloon Man both in play. We cast our Combat Celebrant. So we, in response, or it doesn't matter if we do it in response, we can tap our Iron Mirror and activate Jolly Balloon Man, make a copy of whatever, say Goblin, Mind Goblin, and that makes, say, 3 mana, and we use that 3 mana to cast our Combat Celebrant, and now that our Combat Celebrant is in play, we can exert it. So we go to Combat, we say we're going to exert it when it attacks. Okay, so when you exert it, you untap all other creatures you control, and there's another combat phase after this one. So after you've exerted it, all your other stuff untaps, and now you're going to tap the Iron Mirror and the Jolly Balloon Man again to make a copy of Combat Celebrant. You're going to exert that one in combat, and that one is going to untap the other one. And so you're going to go infinite combat celebrants, and you're going to win the game on the spot. So that's again, this is a deck where we're looking not for any one particular combo, but we're looking for kind of patterns. We're looking for the ability to mix like one of these Port Razor. Maybe I should go through the list. We've got Coercive Recruiter, Combat Celebrant. See, when this deck was brought to my attention, I didn't realize there were this many combo pieces. And actually, in the initial draft of the deck, there weren't. I bet you from the original 100 that was put together, I bet you we've got like 3 new additions that also just go infinite with this, and more dorks in a way. I'll get to that in a minute. So Coercive Recruiter, Combat Celebrant, this could be our, quote, Kikki bottom, where this is the top. So let's call our Kikki top. Basically, if we have a Mana Dork and Jolly Balloon Man, that's Kikki Jikki. That's the way to look at it. We've got our Kikki Jikki with our commander and any of these Mana Dorks. So if we have our Kikki, then we need our Kikki bottom. The Kikki bottoms would be Coercive Recruiter, Combat Celebrant, value, Fear of Missing Out, Marshal of Rohan, Port Raiser. I think that might be all. Oh, and Village Bellringer. So that's, let's see, we've got, for the Kikki bottoms, we've got, if you're not familiar with the term Kikki bottom, Kikki Jikki combos with a bunch of things. So when you do Kikki Jikki combos, they call the card that you combo with Kikki Jikki the Kikki bottom. Kikki's the Kikki top, and then there's a Kikki bottom. So these balloon bottoms are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's pretty good. So we've got 6 versions of our A plus B combo, our main A plus B combo. And the sick thing is all of these combo pieces are interchangeable. You don't need to have exactly Village Bellringer and Mannequin. You can have Port Raiser and Mannequin. You can have Combat Celebrant and Mannequin. You have Combat Celebrant and Iron Mirror. Okay, so now let's look at how many of the A's. So we're going to call those the B's because they're the bottoms. Let's look at how many A's we have. We've got this in the command zone. We're not going to count that. The A's are going to just be 2 mana, colorless Mana Dorks. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dude, that's good. So we've got 6 natural ones, right? But then we also came up with a couple sometimes ones. So Cursed Mirror, if an opponent has a Mana Dork in play, anything that can net you a mana when you tap it, you can drop your Cursed Mirror, copy their, I don't know, Bloom Tender or whatever, and now you've got a Mana Dork, so you don't need to find one of your, I mean, it's not going to be hard to find one of 5 pieces, honestly. But so we've got a sometimes Mana Dork and Cursed Mirror. And we've got Paradise Mantle. Not only do we have Paradise Mantle as like a 7th combo piece, but it's a decent card to begin with. And we have a bunch of tutors that can tutor for artifact equipments. We've got equipment tutors, we've got artifact tutors. So this is going to be real easy to find. And of course, we've got another really good piece of equipment. All of our balloons are 1/1s. And once we've gotten their ETB, we don't really care about them for the most part. So we can skull clamp them, and it just turns into this crazy value engine. I was a little bit skeptical about the Staff of the Storyteller, but in Goldfishing, just the way that it kind of layers with all the other things going on, I wouldn't cut this piece from the deck without playing it. I think probably if you go to a CEDH version of the deck, fully budgetless, it doesn't make the cuts, but in a budget deck, I think this is just, I mean, it's good. It's actually very good with the deck. But yeah, so back to the bottoms. We've got Paradise Mantle, which can equip to any creature and turn that into one of our bottoms. And we've got these little guys down here. Mishra's Factory. Isn't that cool? So we turn Mishra's Factory into a 2/2 creature. Now it's a bottom. Now, I kind of just thought of that on my own. I'm pretty proud of that one. So you tap a mana to make this into a mana creature. It turns into a 2/2 that you can still tap for mana. It's still a land. It still makes colorless mana. So that is like a whatever 8th version, but it's in our land slot. It's a land slot, so it's not really taking up a card slot, not a full slot. It's a 2-color deck. We can get away with this. Mishra's Foundry. It costs 2 to activate, so this is going to be a little bit closer to like the Coercive Recruiters of the deck, where it does take a little bit more mana, but you know, we've got all the interaction in the world. We've got stacks pieces. We should be able to get to turn 4, turn 5, turn 6 and start, you know, while making everybody dead. So yeah, we've got honorable mentions is, so Mishra's Foundry is the same thing as Mishra's Factory, except it takes 2 mana to turn on. Instead of taking only 1 mana to turn on. And I guess they've got a little synergy in between them. But mainly, These are man lands that we can turn into colorless mana dorks. So the colorless mana dork plus the commander plus any of our Kikki bottoms, and you win the game. Or at least you're going to be putting a win on the stack. So what else are we playing in the deck? ETBs, silence effects. And the reason we want to play all these silences is because, like I said, I at least alluded to, we're going to have 3 pieces. And if any one of these 3 pieces is interacted with, we're probably not going to be able to win the game, and we're going to have to be on the lookout for that other combo piece again. So, and some of these combos do end up being a little bit mana intensive, so they're like resource heavy combos, which is why we've kind of put a premium on effects like Revel in Silence. So we can cast the Revel in Silence and then we do our combo, so nobody can interact with us. Or we play our Grand Abolisher out on turn 3, then we untap on turn 4 and we win unimpeded. So then we've also got another version of that effect. And there's a good number of them, but Orm's Chant is the one we went with in this deck. It's only 79 cents, which surprised me. It's it's played in CDH and some like low color white decks, like 2-color white decks. It's totally at home in this deck. So we have Orm's Chant, Revel in Silence, and Grand Abolisher that all kind of are there to do the same thing, just stop people from stopping us. And you could play more of those effects. I think these are probably the best ones, probably. You could make an argument that it bans... There's other versions of this effect, and you could season to meta or season to taste. Now, one of the things I noticed in playtesting, and the first thing I noticed in playtesting was it actually works. The deck frickin' works. Like, this deck is badass. This is so fun. It's so unusual. It's so interesting. And we've got a 99 here that actually does the thing. It's not the fastest deck. And we did put a lot into the initial mana curve was too high. There's a lot of really good 3 mana things in this color combo that kind of fit the deck. And we had a bunch of them, and we ended up in goldfishing. I was finding myself stuck with like 2-3 drop interaction pieces in hand, and I just couldn't have it, and I felt like we weren't quite ramping fast enough, so we put a little bit more ramp in the deck. The land thing is a little bit you kind of need to hit your land drops, but you really don't want to flood, and so we looked at that as a reason to play these MDFCs, but we actually found MDFCs that aren't just good in that they give us bonus lands when we need them, but we're not flooding when we don't need them, but they actually have direct synergy with our commander. So Pinnacle Monk, Witch Enchanter, these are fantastic in this deck. If you need the land, you've got the land drop, because you do want to hit your land drops to like turn 5, turn 4. Turn 4, you want to be hitting land drops until at least turn 3, turn 4 in an ideal curve out situation, right? So Witch Enchanter, if you don't need it as a land drop, then you can just use the Balloon Man to destroy target opponent artifact or enchantment an opponent controls every single turn. Just like, there's so many value things that happen when you're goldfishing this deck. Like, you'll have the Witch Enchanter out, or you'll have like a Lightning Bolt in your graveyard with a Pinnacle Monk in play, and you've got what's the card? The Clamp, Skull Clamp. You'll have Skull Clamp, and so every turn you're just going to be making a balloon copy of Pinnacle Monk, picking up your Lightning Bolt, killing somebody's thing. Then you're going to Skull Clamp your balloon copy of Pinnacle Monk, draw 2 cards. I mean, it really gets out of hand, and it does it fast. Usually not a big fan of Faithless Looting, but I think it works in the deck. It does turn on Delirium, which is a little side synergy, but also because it's like we're loaded up with all of these A's and all of these B's, but we don't need 2 A's, we don't need 2 B's. Those are decks when you're trying to put together specific kind of board states, like patterns, but you don't need like ultra specific, like we don't need exactly A, like we don't need exactly Twin Flame and Dualcaster Mage. We need one of a bundle of A's and we need one of a bundle of B's, and those are the decks where I feel like cards like Faithless Looting actually shine. We're going longer than I Man, that's time flies when you're having fun. So I thought I was kind of talking fast and getting through this stuff, but 33 minutes. Okay, let's go. I wanted to do some gold fishing. Maybe we're not going to have time for that. Last Chance might look a little strange, but this thing dropped to 81 cents. It is a very good card. And I was maybe a little bit skeptical, thought maybe it was in here in the original deck list that Nacho put together as a like some filler, because it is only 81 cents. But in gold fishing, I find it's exactly what the doctor ordered. Think of it as a super ritual. Like you're going to know, especially if you've got Grand Abolisher, Silence Effects, that kind of thing. You're going to know for the most part whether you're able to put a win together on the next turn or not. So if you just tapped like 5 mana and you've got 2 more mana and you know that you're going to win on next turn, just take your next turn, right? Think of it like a super ritual. Think of it like a super ritual cantrip. It untaps all of your mana, draws you a card. That's a good way to think of it. Of course, you lose the game at the end of that turn, but you're not going to cast this unless you're pretty sure you can win the game on your next turn. Open the armory. It's $1, and it finds either our Paradise Mantle or our Skull Clamp. Reckless Handling, same thing, or it'll find one of our dorks if we just want to put a dork out. Savines gets all of our pieces back. One of the ads I made was Strike It Rich. When I was trying to get the mana curve down, I thought also a little bit more ramp would be advisable. Turn 1 ramp. Now, you're not really often looking to just rush the Balloon Man out on turn 3. Sometimes you will. But generally, the play pattern is going to look more like turn 2, you're going to put a value piece in play, like maybe Spirited Companion or Humble Defector, any of these things, Impure Recruiter. You're going to put something that you can blink into play on turn 2. Not blink, but copy and get the ETB. Something with an ETB on turn 2. Turn 3, you're going to put the Jolly Balloon Man down, and then hopefully right then and there start profiting, like start copying your Imp Recruiter and finding the next piece, or making a balloon copy of your let's flip this guy, making a balloon copy of your any of this stuff. I was thinking of specifically Humble Defector. This is so cool. I had this in my Rionya deck, and making like 5 copies of this, drawing 10 cards, and then not passing them is fantastic. And then, so on turn, I think most of the time you're going to be looking up to threaten, or you're going to be looking to put together winning board states between turn 4 and 5. And that isn't turbo fast, but look at all this interaction. Like, look at all this stuff. Look at all the nasty things you're doing to your opponents in the meantime. And sometimes it does just pop off and it'll go turn 4. So that's kind of the normal kind of play pattern is going to be, develop this guy. I wouldn't play him until you have the ability to activate him and get some value off of him, generally speaking. Exceptions to every rule. But then if you did your turn 3, got a recruiter, then you should be ready to set up the win on turn 4. Now, you may still have to pass the turn and get back to your turn 5, but maybe not, kind of depending. One piece that does help you to not have to do that is if the thing you're flickering is the goblin. I'm not going to go into how this thing works. It's complicated, but let's just say maybe on average it makes 4 mana every time you flicker it, so it turns your 1 colorless mana into a mega ritual, even if it only makes 3, and I think it always has to make at least 3 mana. Then anytime you activate the Jolly Balloon Man to copy your goblin, it will be like casting a dark ritual that's colorless and produces 3 red mana. So that's kind of how the deck's going to look most of the time. You're going to be blowing up your opponent's stuff, tutoring for your pieces. We've got some pretty cool interaction that you don't get to play in every deck. Flare of Duplication is pretty good here. We do have a red commander, but mainly the thing is we've got disposable, expendable bodies. We've got another version of the Goblin, too. I forgot about this. Priest of Urabrask. Professional Facebreaker is great in here, too. I think it's worth the $5, whatever it is. Pro Facebreaker, when you can make a balloon and you've got your Facebreaker and you've got one other creature, you're making 3 treasures. Well, if you make a copy of Professional Facebreaker and you attack one person with one Facebreaker and one person with the other Facebreaker, each one procs the other. So you'll actually get you'll get 4 treasures in that situation. Or if you've got 3 attackers and 2 of them are Pro Facebreaker stats or text, then you'll make 6 treasures. So there are some situations like that where you can get running really quick. Molten Gatekeeper was one I was not high on. This is one that Nacho was really pushing for, and I was kind of pushing against, and I let him win this battle. The idea is to have a piece that allows you to win the game post-combat. So if you have to go to combat and then afterwards you win the game, most of your win the games are going to be infinite combats or infinite creatures that attack. But if you have Molten Gatekeeper, if you can do a post-combat, make infinite dudes, you win the game with your Molten Gatekeeper. What my problem with was the idea that I don't see when that's going to be relevant, because we're not doing anything. This is what I was thinking. We're not doing anything in combat that's going to cause us to be... We're not a Tymna deck, right? We're not going to be drawing a bunch of cards and then be like, oh, shit, if I could have another combat, I could win. That's what I was thinking. But in goldfishing, what I found is this actually does come up, and I do think this is worth the include. Like if you have a creature like, I don't know, something that does something like a Pro Face Breaker, and you make a copy of it, a balloon copy, go to combat, you make a bunch of treasures, and then you burn a couple of treasures and you find your combo pieces. Well, you can't just win post-combat with the Dual Caster Twin Flame combo. But if you have Molten Gatekeeper in play, then you can. Or if you're making Balloon Man tokens, you're going to combat, you're skull clamping them, and you're drawing cards. So it does come up where you draw a bunch of cards post-combat, and it's good to have the ability to win post-combat. And it's only one card slot, so I think it probably does make the cut. And then this guy is one that, so we were looking for draw engines, value engines, because we are going a little bit longer. Party Thrasher ends up being really good. Probably a lot of you knew that. Pro Face Breaker, really good little value engine. We have kind of a bunch of DIY, like do it yourself, make your own, build your own value engines out of ETB creatures that we can copy with our commander. But Nelly is one that Nacho is super big on, and he made a pretty convincing argument for it. The 4 mana is still a bit much for me, so I'm not 100% sold on it, but he explained how it works in his meta at least. So I decided obviously just to defer to the person who's actually played it. And I want to say too that people will look at this card and say, okay, so... and if you're not familiar with the card, it says whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls deal combat damage to one or more of your opponents, you and the controller of the creature each draw a card. So every time one of your opponents hits one of your other opponents, you draw a card, and the guy that did the hitting draws a card. So you're giving away cards, and that seems bad, right? But let's just look at this in a toy game scenario. Let's say that we have given, and on average this should be about the case, we've given all of our opponents the same advantage with our Nelly. Well, that's going to mean that each of them drew 1 card and we drew 3 cards. So that's going to be kind of like the average state of the card. It's 4 mana. I don't know if that's good enough, but it does have other text. Whenever Impulsive Accuser attacks, you suspect target creature. That goads the creature, which can be a good effect to have, like, you know, maybe they've got a Grand Abolisher that you wouldn't really like to see in place. So you have it attack with their Grand Abolisher, and then somebody blocks it and kills it. Also, a suspected creature has Menace, so they'll need 2 creatures to block it, which means you'll be more likely to get your card draw through it. So it's got some extra text, and it is a creature. It's got a body. It does things. But I think the card draw that you get off this could be really good. But it is tempered a little bit by the fact that your opponents are also going to be drawing cards. So that's the thing. I think on balance, it's definitely worth playtesting. And Nacho has played with it, played against it, swears by it. So I thought I'd leave it in the deck. Give it a spin. I'm going to. Give it a whirl. See how it works. If it doesn't do what you want it to do, we've got some pretty easy swap outs here. Rionya is the one I missed the most, man. She's sick in here. But Nacho's right. Probably a little bit on the win more side. She is a busted Magic card. You should play her. You should buy her. You should at least own her. I think that's most of what I have to say about the deck. We've got, I feel like there was a tutor I didn't talk about. Oh, there's another Ritual, Spirit Guide. What was the other? Well, I'm not going to spend 20 minutes looking for it. I think that's going to be about it. We've got some tutors. We've got redundancy. We've got layered A's plus B's. We've got a commander that can be a value engine. But primarily what it's there to do for us is turn a bunch of cards in our deck into A plus B layered combos. We've got, I was talking about Flare of Duplication. So we have a bunch of these kind of disposable creatures. So Flare of Duplication is extra good in this deck. Flare of Fortitude, I also think, we'll have a bunch of white creatures, and we're going to have a board state that we want to protect. And so I think Flare of Fortitude is probably worth the $3 include. It's also got kind of the... well, it's not just a protect your board. It's also kind of like a Teferi's Pro, kind of, sort of. I've never played it. Nacho put it in. I think it's probably worth the include. Lightning Bolt, obviously. Wear and Tear is one of my favorite budget Boros cards. You can spend 3 mana and destroy 2 things, or you can spend 1 mana, blow up an enchantment, 2 mana, blow up an artifact. Thinking of removing enchantments reminded me of one of Nacho's reasons for wanting to have ways to win post-combat, which sometimes Skull Clamp is that way to win, by the way. But this guy, Molten whatever, where'd he go? Like having guys like this so that we can win after combat if need be, is because in his meta where he plays, and he plays against players that are not playing budget decks, but it sounds like they're not fully tuned CDH, but they're pretty close. And it's a place, it's not in America, it's a place where cards are a little bit harder to come by. And maybe money's a little harder to come by. And, well, I don't know about that for sure. But also, the cards are more expensive. I guess that's the way to say it. It's hard to get the cards. They cost more money. And so he's brewing in a budget space to try to take these decks to the LGS. And he's able to beat up on, or at least keep up with, like, pretty tuned, fairly competitive budgetless decks. So he's got a lot of experience. He's on the Discord. Check it out. Savine's Reclamation, yeah, any of our combo pieces that get 86ed and we need it back, we've got a way to do that. I think that's... the thing he was saying about the post-combat, I'm sorry. So he was saying that post-combat win conditions are necessary in his meta because a lot of the players are playing... what is that called? The Ghostly Prison effects. Now, I don't see that very often. But I've never played casual much. I've played like probably 4 or 5 games of casual in my life. And I guess, so if you're going to an LGS and you're playing against a bunch of players that play, pretty tuned but non-CEDH decks, I guess that's a card type that people play, are these things that tax you on combat. And so if your opponent's playing one of those kinds of decks, it's like a sort of Staxy Pillow Fort type of deck. Having a way to win the game that doesn't require you to attack your opponents can be pretty good. Some of the stacks pieces, Blind Obedience, it shuts down Kikki Jikki combos, it shuts down Malcolm Glinthorn combos, shuts down Dualcaster combos. A lot of what's in the format gets shut off by this. Power Balance, I still feel like everybody's sleeping on this card. It's 13 cents. We're not going turbo fast. It's in the deck. Smuggler, it's a value engine. It's a mana engine in a way, and a card advantage engine in a way. Deafening Silence, we're mostly playing creatures. We've got like 35 creatures. Deafening Silence is fantastic. Smuggler Share is one I want to try. And again, Nacho says he's played this, and it's definitely worth the include. We ended up on 33 lands, counting the 2 MDFCs. They're both MDFCs that come into play untapped, and I think that's been perfect so far. Guys, that is my video. That is the deck list. Check out the Discord. You're invited. You're welcome. No being a gatekeeper. No being a cocky asshole. We're going to have almost like a zero tolerance policy for people being shitheads. There's a couple other budget Discords in the world, and there's a couple guys that I feel like are very gatekeepy, and they're really just kind of like they like to give people a lot of shit for just not intuitively knowing the CEDH meta, having never played it before. They just like to make people feel a little bit dumb. Guess it makes them feel smart. None of that is here. Like, honestly, guys, that's one thing that Ryan and I and the other admin people are not going to go for. So, and the other way to look at that is you've got a safe place to come and ask questions. And even if they're questions that from a CDH perspective are kind of, nonsense, it doesn't matter, because we know that you wouldn't be asking those questions if you were like a CDH veteran. And even if, who cares, right? Like, people ask questions sometimes. Like, I don't want anybody to feel afraid to express their ideas, and I don't want anybody doing any or saying anything that would make somebody feel afraid to express said ideas. Maybe we'll do a Goldfish. I love the way the deck plays, but we're not getting to it now. So until next time, guys, May all your outs be live. May all your draws be good. To all the women I loved before, may the force be with you. And peace be with you also, and also with you. East side until the day that I die on the west side. Word to your mamas. And namaste.